Hi, I'm Alex Archbold, and I've been buying and selling antiques since I was 9 years old. From basements to scrapyards, I'll look just about anywhere I can to find lost antiques and collectibles. And sometimes I'll go big and buy everything. With my wife and kids, we run an antique shop in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, filled with some of the most unique items we can find. I never know what's going to happen or who I'm going to meet. This is our life, this is our adventure, and this is Curiosity Inc.
From home, honey.
Hi guys, and welcome to today's episode. I have been very busy this past week. What have I been busy with? Well, if you saw my last episode that came up, I went out of town and I bought approximately 10,000 comic books from a fellow. And honestly, didn't know what I had. So I've been spending the last few days going through all of this and all that and trying to see exactly what came out of this collection. Now, when I bought it, I just basically looked in a couple of the boxes, we did the math on it, and we figured out a price per comic. Essentially, it worked out to about $1 a comic. 10,000 comics, $10,000. I figured even if I had a bunch of Archies and I could get, $1.50 or $2 out of them, I'd probably do okay. That said, that's not what I got. What I got was a lot more special and a lot more unique. You're not gonna believe the stuff that was in these boxes. Let me show you. Now, before I get into the comics, I did want to talk a little bit about the price guides. Now, I had very little idea that even comic book price guides had value, like these Overstreet guides all in basically mint condition. But the real shocker was that I had the first Overstreet price guide in here too. And who would know that a price guide that was sold in 1970 for $5 could be worth $1,000. I looked in here, it lists, I'll show you the page. I think it's fair to say that we all know Amazing Fantasy as being the first appearance of Spider-Man, and it's worth a lot of money. Well, at this time, number 15, Amazing Fantasy, first appearance of Spider-Man, mint condition, $16. That was only worth 3 times more roughly than this price guide. So, if somebody was a savvy investor at that time, they would have done quite well for themselves. That said, this price guide on its own is worth like $1,000. And some of these other ones are worth, $200-$300 each. I sold all the price guides already and got $2,000 back alone right off of those. As for the comics, they weren't just a random assortment of comics. They were basically complete series or complete runs. So if we had, Code of the Silver Sage, well, there's probably all of them in there. If they had, you can see this is 2 of 14. Every single one is probably in there. And you can see some of the prices, like $100 each, that sort of thing. This was not an inexpensive collection. And when you start pricing out, the average price point per comic is in the $20 to $50 kind of range. There's a lot in here that I haven't even gone through yet. I think there's almost a full series of Dell movie comics and Dell 4-color, as you can see, gold keys, all the one-shots, tons of stuff. And that's not even taking into account all of the big little books that are here. And the mystery, which I'm still trying to figure out, of the comic book covers. Now, I'm not overly familiar with the collecting of covers. These look as though they were attached to comic books at some point, or somebody was saying, well, maybe they were test comics and these are samples. But I think these are basically just circulated comic book covers, some in nicer condition than others. I think he kind of collected both covers for their artwork, obviously, and the complete comics themselves. But I sure have a whole lot of these comic book covers too. And, maybe just for artwork, they'll still have some value. There are binders and binders and binders full of them, and also autographs and other sorts of things. Other collectibles that I found so far include these little Dairy Hopalong Cassidy pins, little collectibles, Roy Rogers and so forth. There's Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. So some little You know, tin pins that probably came in the, you know, you can see Sunbeam bread, so maybe a bag of bread, or, you know, when you got your dairy from the store. And of course, some books. Look, some of these are quite old, from the turn of the century, like this one entitled The Squaw Man, The Saga of Billy the Kid, Apache Devil, but there's also some historic books in the mix too. This is our Alberta Golden Jubilee, but this, I believe, is a second printing of Gone with the Wind from the 1930s. So, you know, there's going to be a little bit of homework to do on figuring out what all these individual books are worth as well. But it's been a lot of work even just going through the comics. So what I did is I left all the comics in their complete runs. I left them as they were sorted because they're so nicely sorted already. They're all numbered, they're organized, they're in complete order. The only thing I did is I took out the really high dollar comics because I might want to send those off to get them graded. I'm going to show you what the high dollar comics were. I very painstakingly went through nearly every comic book series I had to find out which ones had a little bit more value. So if they were worth, you know, maybe a couple $100s or more potentially, I put what the potential target price was, like this Lone Ranger, listed as being in fine condition, with a potential resale price of about $500 Canadian on that. And you look at the overall condition of it, it's really not bad. What we are going to do is separate all the high dollar ones. They may go back with their runs if somebody ends up being interested in a complete collection of, you know, maybe they want all the Durango Kids, maybe they want all the Gabby Hayes or so forth. But I went through all these comics that were a little bit more money and picked out the ones that were in the better condition. So if they were listed as being like this Tarzan, number 11, if this is in fact in very fine or near mint condition, which it appears to be pretty darn good, that can go off to get graded. So we're going to send some of these out to get graded. So anything that is a higher value and is listed as being in near mint, like look at how crisp the edge, the spine of this comic is. Anything that's in basically mint or near mint condition is going off to get graded professionally. It'll come back in a proper holder, you know, like Rio Bravo with John Wayne. But you start looking at the numbers here. Look at the return on the investment from $1 to $300 to $500. But that's not all. These aren't even the really, really good ones. These are just sort of, you know, moderately or decently expensive comics that are in basically excellent or near mint condition. You know, like these John Carter of Mars, near mint. I mean, look at the great art on that cover. I can see why someone would want that. It's just really, really cool. And of course, people do collect certain artists, but Sunset Carson, potentially a $700 comic. Again, this one listed as being very fine, but we'll see how it comes back. Some of these really early ones, like Gene Autry, can be quite expensive. And even though the condition's not super great on it, maybe there's not a lot of them out there, and it might be worth getting graded anyway. But let's get to the comics that have potentially some of the most value. All these are in fine or near mint condition. And it wasn't just Western. There was Zorro, there was all kinds of stuff. The very first Bonanza, you're gonna see some cool stuff here. Lone Ranger. And here we go, okay. This is kind of a fun stack right here. What we have is, this is a 1952 copy. This was a Fawcett motion picture comic. This one is When Worlds Collide. So it has, you know, that space theme going on. The condition's really good, and it is a rare comic. And if it was in, if it comes back in a high grade, it's potentially worth over $1,000. Just that one comic. There's also Whip Wilson #1 from Marvel. John Wayne's very first comic book, and it looks like he changed it from very good to fine to being in fine condition. And yeah, the spine is really nice. It's not rolled over. The staples aren't really separated. So we'll see how that one comes back. But man, John Wayne's first comic, Gene Autry #1. Now, sadly, this isn't in the greatest shape. You can see there's a piece of the cover missing by the staple. If it had that, it wouldn't be terrible. Somebody's obviously, you know, some kid read this a lot. They really liked it and they read it a lot and they put some tape on it. He has it rated as fair condition, which might be fairly accurate. If this was, you know, mint, like some of these other ones are, this could be, you know, like a $7,000 or $8,000 comic book. As it sits, I'm not sure. We'll send it out and get it graded. Same thing with Roy Rogers #1. Overall, it's not too bad, but it has some wear on the edge, but a rare book. So early Roy Rogers and a lot of first edition. So first edition of Straight Arrow, #1 Lone Ranger from the 1948 series. Hopalong Cassidy. And condition's actually pretty good on most of these. Tex Ritter, Tim Holt, another Tim Holt. And what's cool about this, this is the first one featuring the Ghost Rider. It's not the first appearance of the Ghost Rider, but it's the first, I think I have the first appearance of Ghost Rider. But that's the first, I think, his main cover. Anyway, that makes it kind of a rare one, potentially worth about $600 or so. Very first, I Love Lucy. Her first comic from 1950. Oh, no, that's not her first. That's her second. The second, I Love Lucy. There's her first right there. And that one's rated as being near mint. This one's being fine. These are all going to get sent out and get graded. Turok, Son of Stone. I think I have the entire series of Turok. I don't know if I said that right. I hope I did. But anyway, the first few were quite collectible and quite valuable. Now, this was a neat one. This is a Roy Rogers Giant Edition comic book. I have no idea what it's worth. It was only sold in Canada. This is listed as being in near mint condition. According to Heritage Auctions, there's only 5 or 6 of these known to exist. Well, guess what? I've got #7 right here, and mine is near mint. We're going to get that sent off. Tom Mix. There's the #1 of Turok, Son of Stone. And I guess it was, they had indigenous peoples and dinosaurs is what the theme was of this whole series. Oh, kind of a cool series. If in good shape, that could be a $2,000 comic book. This #1 listed as being in very fine or near mint condition, and I wouldn't disagree. That's pretty pristine. Same thing, #1 Cisco Kid. Look at that. And they had all these like little sub-comics that were inside there as well. Super Baby, that never seemed to really catch on too much. Romance Trail, #1. A rare, you know, comic book series about love on the trail, I guess. Early Tarzan. And this is #2. He had it listed as being in very good or fine condition. And #1, the first Tarzan comic, dated 1948. #1 of 12, 1948. You can see the back's in good shape, potentially worth $1,800. So there's the first Tom Mix, near mint. Flash Gordon #2. So thankfully for me, it wasn't all just, I have nothing against Western comics, but it's nice to get some variety. And Flash Gordon, that's a pretty cool one. So we're going to get all those sent off and graded. There's a few different ways to figure out the value of a comic book. For this one, let's try a website called comicbookrealm.com. The Western that we're looking at right now is called Tom Mix, and they made a lot of Tom Mix Westerns. So we're going to type in Tom Mix. We're going to hit enter here and see what comes up. Now, of course, condition plays a really big role. This one's in pretty nice shape, but if you're not sure exactly how to figure it out, so you look and see what it is. So we have a few options here, Tom Mix Comics, and you can look at the age ranges, 1940, 43, 83. This one's 1948, and it's Fawcett. So we look, 1948 to 53 Fawcett, so that's Tom Mix Western Volume 1. We tap on that. And what we get are some results. Now, there it shows Tom Mix #1. It says that 119 people have searched this. The current value is around $800. But that doesn't give us an idea of what the full value is. Because condition, like I said, plays a role. So you have to take that into factor. So here's where you get an idea. So Gem Mint would be $1,200 mint, and these are US prices. So near mint. So it all depends on 9.6, 9.4, 9.2. It kind of goes down from there. So I kind of guessed this one, you know, being pretty darn nice, maybe around 800 Canadian, which would put it around the $600, like the very fine, or, you know, that kind of range. But we'll see. This is one I'm going to send off to get graded, and then there's no questioning what it is. But you can kind of get an idea of how many people have it as well. It says owned one. So somebody has registered that they've got one of these. So that's not a whole lot of people that have put this through. Probably not a whole pile of these have been professionally graded. So probably a good book to get done. But a resource like this, like going on websites like Comic Book Realm or other places, give you an idea of what they're selling for and more or less what they're worth. And, you know, you can look at other issues too. The number one is obviously worth the most. Number two, you click on that side and you can see what picture of it is. There it is there. And what the current value is. So again, we can tap on the value and see, they said current value $340, but where are they getting that from? Well, let's see. Gem mint, they say 510, and then it goes down. So near mint would be about 340. And you can see there's a big difference when you start getting down to grade. So fair is only $10, where you get one that's fine or very fine. It really climbs incrementally in value. So I'm not a professional comic book grader. I'm sure I'm going to get my education on this stuff by the end, but you just use whatever resources you have to make the best educated guess you can, and hope that you end up with the treasure at the end of the day. But the honorable mention pile is pretty cool too, like early Bambis, old John Wayne covers, Roy Rogers, Tom Mix. You know, these are all really cool. The only reason that they're not getting sent off for grading is that they're listed as being very good or fine. You know, Three Stooges, Ricky Nelson comics, the musician. He was a big deal. He was like, you know, up there with Elvis for quite some time. Tom Corbett's Space Cadet, you know. And even though that one is listed as being in near mint condition, maybe it's only $100 or $200 comic, but still. You know, I think I might have the whole run of Tom Corbett's Space Cadet here. In fact, I'm fairly certain that I do. And it can be that the full run of a series can be worth more as a set than it is individually. Same thing with John Carter of Mars. I think I've got every single one of those. Or Naoka the Jungle Girl. You know? The Lone Rider. There's so many good comic books. And look at the age. These are golden era comics. These are all 1940s and 50s and going to the 60s with some silver. This is all, you know, there's John Wayne playing Genghis Khan. That was probably a poor role for him to take at the time. I'm Genghis Khan, partner. They have a Western guy playing Genghis Khan. Well, I am super pleased with basically everything that I got here. The condition is great, and they're already bagged and boarded. So they already went to the effort to get everything. And some of the better ones are in these Mylar sleeves. What a collection. Now, apparently the guy that had these comic books, well, he reached out to me a couple months ago. They didn't give me an idea of what was in the boxes. They just said they had a storage unit full of their comic book collection. They wanted to sell them. When they gave me the initial price, about $25,000, I said, that's an awful lot for comic books. I don't really know that I wanted to spend in 25 grand. And I'm guessing that every other comic book store that they called in that area said the same thing. But after a month or two, I reached back out and said, you know, do you still have that collection? And I went out to have a look at it. I was the only person, after 4 months of them wanting to sell this collection, I was the only guy that made the trip out there to go have a look at it. And as a result, I ended up getting some cool stuff. So it pays to go out and have a look. This person invested a lot of time and money starting in the 70s. So I'm guessing when they started buying, these weren't all that expensive, but they sure are now. So what a great collection. I still have a lot to go through. It's, if you're interested in buying a complete run or what have you, let me know. I am right now holding off until I hear back. The comic book grading company, apparently if you have a collection like this, it might be classified as what's called a pedigree collection. But I think I've got two out of three things going for it to be pedigree. Pedigree means it's basically a substantial collection. You have to have about 1,000 to 10,000 books, which I have. They have to be primarily golden age, which I have. The grading has to be generally quite high. I would say that's just about there. And a single owner, but they're not the original owner, and that's the thing that might be my downfall. If this guy collected all these since he was a kid, I think it'd be a no-brainer. But because he purchased these probably at stores and was collecting over a number of years, he's not the original owner. He didn't buy them off the newsstand or the comic book store when he was a kid. So as a result, it probably won't get classified as a pedigree, but it's darn close. This is a very substantial collection, and it's going to keep me very busy for quite some time. So what's next? Well, I have to go through the process of getting some of the, the better comics that we have professionally graded, and maybe try and find buyers for, complete runs of things, or start filling in holes in other people's collections. It's going to be a long process, and I still haven't gotten to the movie posters yet. All these boxes are full of old Western and space and who knows what else movie posters. That's going to be a future video. I'll do that very soon. But I still have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or so boxes of movie posters to go through. So wish me luck, guys, as I continue on this journey and try. I've not gotten my money back on this deal yet, but I think it's safe to say that I will in time. That's why I think I say in the intro, sometimes I go big and buy the whole thing, because sometimes a bulk deal is your best deal. This investment will hopefully come back, more than tenfold for us, and help pay down a lot of debts and help pay for some of the construction on our new building. So I'm very, very grateful to have had it. It's going to help us out quite a bit. In the meantime, I still have a lot of work ahead of me. I'm going to get back to it. You guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you all soon. Don't forget to subscribe. If you want to reach me about some comic books, you can do that through curiosityedmonton@gmail.com, or you can write us through Facebook under Curiosity Inc. or Instagram at Curiosity Inc. YEG. Look forward to seeing you guys all soon. Have a great day. Bye for now.